Now we will see the VCS. If you already buy the hardware of the 7,000 and now you want to deploy the VCS, for example, how to which devices you can buy. If you buy one is 7006 and another one is 7003, they cannot work. You must to buy the same version of the devices. Maybe both of them 7 and 6, maybe both of them 7 and 3. And what's the key limitation? Why we have this one? That's because depends on the technology. So about the NBS 7 series VCS, we now only stop today. We support 2 switches. Then we can use this device to combine with each other. Then we can deploy the VCS. Of course, in the future, maybe we can support 3 of the switches together, or maybe 4 of the switches together. Then we can make a ring. Then this can provide a higher performance than 2. But now we only expand 2 switches. And both of them, if you want to use this feature, first is you must use special link to connect with each other. And about this link, you also have to do some special configuration. We have to make the interface to become special VCL. The link is VCL and the port is special, can provide some special encapsulation between these 2 switches to forward with each other. And then you have to enable the function of the VCS. If you enable this feature, we have some special concepts you have to know. The first is the domain ID. If 2 switches in the same VCS, they must have the same domain ID. If the domain ID is different, they cannot. So if you already deploy the VSU, I guess you already know what's the meaning of the domain ID, and we can use a command to change the domain ID to become safe. But on the RE NBS 7000, we directly design the domain ID information on the devices. And the device NBS 7006, the domain ID is different with the 7003. That's why at the beginning we say, if you want to buy the NBS and to use the VCS feature, you must buy the same series device, both of them to become 7 and 6, or maybe both of them become 7 and 3, because the domain ID is different. And you cannot use the configuration to change the domain ID. If the version is same, when we negotiate the parameters between these 2 switches, they will directly find the domain ID is same. So this is the first one. And then about these 2 switches, after the election, we will have three status. One is active and another one is standby. Of course, if you in the future we have over more than 2 switches, maybe you have the 3rd one, also maybe you have the 4th one, the state we can provide the candidates. But now we only have 2, so about the status, one is active and another one is standby. But about the active and standby, only based on the control plan. That means, for example, you deploy some dynamic routing protocol in the future, or maybe deploy the STP, they have to do the calculation, which status in the blocking status, or maybe port in the forwarding status, something like this. About the control plan, only the active switch will have the active status. The other control plan is standby. What's the function of the standby? I'm waiting. I'm waiting the active card is broken. I will immediately to become the active. So about the control plan, we will use active and standby. But about the data plan, you also can see this one can be a forwarding plan. If we already get the forwarding table, like maybe it's MAC address table, ARP table, or maybe IP routing table, all of the member or the switch select cards, we will have the state of the active. That means if we receive the message according to the forwarding plan, according to the forwarding table, I will immediately forward the message out. So these are two status. So these are different status in the switch. And how to select who will be active, who will be standby? We will use some special feature. Is a priority. Of course, higher priority, we will get to become the active. And by the default, the priority is 100. And you can use a command to change the priority. For example, I think the right one should be better to become active and the left one to become standby. You can change the priority. And in the same VCS, we say the domain ID must be same. But how to distinguish the left one is switch 1 and the left 2 is switch 2? We will use a parameter is switch ID. Pay attention about the switch ID. Different device, the switch ID must be different. So this is the meaning of each features when we deploy the VCS. So about this feature, do you have any question?
Okay.
It's okay for you?
No. I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so VCS, we need to switch for the link between two switch. Which port we will use?
Yes, this is a detail of the VCL. About the VCL, we have some special definition. The bandwidth at least 10 gigabit. This is a limit of the VCS.
Okay, the
10 and about the
gigabit.
VCL, we also will talk about the detail later.
Okay.
Yes. So these are the feature if you want to deploy the VCS, right? And you have to give the domain ID, but now the domain ID, if you buy the devices, we already set the domain ID on in the switch. You cannot change. You can change switch ID. You can change the priority. Then according to these two parameters, we can select who is active switch, who is a standby switch. And the active and standby only the difference between the control plan. About the data plan, all of them can forward the message out. So this is a basic one. And then we can see the detail of each concept. The first is domain ID. And the domain ID is a special feature identifies the VCS. Only the switch with the same domain ID, then we can form the VCS. So this is the limitation. And the special one for the RE-NBS switch is the domain ID already located on the switch. You cannot change. So this is the first one. And about the switch ID, this is attribute to distinguish different switch in the same domain ID. And about the RE switch, pay attention, please. Now we only support two IDs, 1 and 2. You cannot set the switch ID to become 3, 4, or maybe 100, 200. So about the special one is in the future, if you change the switch ID, the devices will be restart. So pay attention about this step, this parameter. Maybe the other parameter, for example, you change the VCL link to become 1 to become 3. It doesn't matter. They can continue to work. But if you change the switch ID for one switch, they will restart. If the device is restart not successful or maybe not calculated successfully, the switch cannot work. So pay attention about this one. And if we use the VCS, the special for our interface is maybe if you don't use the switch ID, don't use the VCS feature, when you create the IP address for one interface, we only have two-factor format of the interface, like gigabit 101, right? This is a switch. This is your port number. But if you use the VCS, the number will support to become three-factor format, 111. The first one is the switch ID, and the second one is the line card, and this is a port number. So these are different if you use a VCS. If you directly give the IP address for 211, that means you will directly enter the interface of the second switch. So these are different. And about the switch ID, we have to make different switch. The ID will be different. Otherwise, they cannot negotiate successfully. And another one for the switch priority, we will use the priority to select who will be the active switch and who will become the standby switch. And the value range is 1 to 255. The default value is 100. And you can use your configuration to change the priority. It doesn't matter. We will select the highest. And about the priority, we have two parts. One is config priority and another one for the running priority. Maybe you already formed the VCS successfully and all the switch for the message for the matches out successfully. Then you want to change the priority. And this priority we call is run priority. And this value, these two value, maybe will be different, right? If you not save the configuration on your device, the value will be different. So these are two priority. And about the VCL. The VCL, usually we will use a great link because this link is very important. Not only help us to forward the message between these two switches, but also we have to detect all these two sides is working or not. If not, we have to make the status, for example, to from the standby to become active, something like this. So we suggest to use a great link to become the VCL. And you also can support multiple VCL link in the aggregate link group, and then to make the available stronger. So this is a VCL. And about the VCL, we also have some limitation. Someone likes our customer said, which interface can be VCL? The first limitation is at least supports the 10 gigabit, then this link can be VCL. When you do the configuration, your appearance or your line card, we will have special color to show you which interface can be the VCL. So this is the first one. The second one, maybe you use two interfaces to become VCL. They must be located in the same line card. You cannot use the line 1 interface 1, line 2 interface 2. These two interfaces to become the VCL cannot. Only located in the same line. This is the second limitation. And the third limitation is now we only support 1 to 4 interface to become the VCL group. If you want to use 5 or maybe more, we cannot support. So this is some limitation of the VCL. And about the switch rule, we can support active and standby. And we also explain what's the difference between the active and the standby. About the control plane, it will be different. You can do lots of configuration, but finally it will be working on the active switch. Then the active switch will do the synchronization, synchronize the configuration in the real time to your standby switch. Then your standby switch will get the configuration. But about the data plane, forwarding plane, both switches are in active status. That means all of them can forward the message out. So this is a switch rule. And about the working mode, we can support standalone and the VCS. If you don't add the VCS in your switch, that means we were in the state-alone status. These two switches will forward the message or maybe do the network calculation independently. But if you add in the VCS configuration in these two switches, and also, for example, to create the domain ID, then to use the switch ID and give different priority and set the VCL interface, something like this, we will change the mode from standalone to become VCS. So these are two different work modes. Okay, so these are basic working principle. About the basic one, do you have any question about this part? Do you have any question?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Yes, connect two switch with the 10G link, right?
Yes.
Yes. So how about because we have two links? So how about one link with 10G LAN and one link with 10G fiber cable? It is possible.
You mean the interface type is different, right?
Yes, different kind of port, just port. One port fiber port 10G and another port is the outside is the copper.
Yes, and this one I have to check with our actually should be the line card. I think it will be more clear about this one. These are the LAN card we can support install on our switch, right? How many 10 gigabit switches we can support? This is TX, right? We only limit the bandwidth at least 10 gigabit. But another limitation is all the interface must located on the same line card. So you will find, same line card. You cannot use line card 1 interface 1 and line card 2 interface 1, mix them to become VCL. Cannot. So
I mean, can we mix because we have two switch, one switch with line card, maybe line card number 2 and another switch. The line card
another
is,
switch, right?
Yes, another switch with line card, or maybe the 48 SSP card.
This one?
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And
it's okay.
It is running.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Because we don't detect in the same link different sites what's your interface type. We only detect your bandwidth.
Okay.
I guess your question is in the same switch, they cannot.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Anyone have any other questions?
Yes, Miss. May I note about the details or it is and standby? May I know?
The active and standby?
Yes.
Yes. Any question about this part, active and standby?
Yes, Miss. I would like to note about the detail or edit and standby switch. Yes, and I only catch in your business configuration about VCS. The first slide. Your slide. Yes.
This one? You mean how long we can detect, right?
Yes. No.
This one?
Yes.
This is a time.